Transdemic podcast. Welcome back to another brilliant week in the life, view, perspective of the trans. And all you cis human beings out there, you're welcome. Hope you all are getting something out of this. Not gonna talk forever, never do, hardly ever do. Just gonna get right into this conversation with Ben Lee. We go off the rails today, so I hope you enjoy it. A little bit longer of an episode than usual. But you know what? The world's on fire, so fuck it. Let's get to that conversation. I don't know, right now.
I don't know. I had a dream last night that I was like doing like a parody interview, and so how like basically every interview you see about like someone that's trans, it's never a trans person being interviewed. It's like a transphobic person. I was like texting you about this.
Yep.
Or someone that just not even transphobic, but they don't know what's going on, and
Yep.
they're like spreading all this misinformation to the masses. I had like a dream last night that it was in reverse, where I was like on a podcast, like as a parody, talking as if I knew everything about cis men, and I just thought it was really funny I kind of want to make that into like a YouTube video. I think that'd be a good way to maybe make maybe even like two people fucking wake up about what they're doing, because it's like, yeah. I don't know much about cis men and I shouldn't be speaking for them, but I think it'd be kind of funny to like make a joke about it.
I think it'd be awesome. It's funny you had a dream about it. I feel like a lot of my ideas come in the form of dreams.
Yeah, I think it's just I get so pissed off like reading the news and like seeing all the trans news and stuff. I go to bed with that on me, and then I wake up with like usually fucked up dreams. But I mean, that was pretty funny. It's weird.
That's weird. It's such a rabbit hole of shit. I mean, I feel like we always talk about kind of like reading you. I feel like you're reading a lot more than I do. It's like you're always like informing me of all these things that I don't know about, or like I've read about, but you seem to like really do some deep dives. You came up with some interesting. I don't know if we talked about it. We talked a little bit on the last podcast with the Rowling stuff, and you looked into and we had bridged that from like the Joe Rogan discussion, and you had talked about this particular person that he was getting the information from, which is what we're talking about now, which is like people that are brought in as, I guess, I don't know, they're brought in as like experts or like a perspective of a trans perspective, and they have nothing to do. They're like actually the opposite of like a trans person. Yes. Who was the person that you were talking about specifically that was in the interview with Joe Rogan? What's her name? Alice something. I don't know. She is probably one of the worst, if not the worst person out there as far as attacking the trans community goes. She manipulated a bunch of F to M trans dudes on YouTube, and like one of them she interviewed and was like, hey, I'm writing this book to like help transgender youth, right? Mm-hmm. And he like shared screenshots and stuff, this dude, and he's like, look, this is what she asked, because people were giving him shit for being a part of this book, but he's like, no, look, she like manipulated me into thinking this book was a good thing for youth, and she spun it as to, well, the name of the book is Irreversible Damage. Of course. Yeah. It's a popular narrative.
Right, yeah, and then it's like the transgender something seducing your daughters, and it's like this whole thing, which she didn't inform anybody about what the book was about or what the name was or anything. I think she said like she didn't have a name for it yet. But yeah, so she interviewed a couple people on YouTube and then looked up a couple other trans dudes and non-binary people and wrote them in the book without their permission and used their names and like tore apart their videos. And like, for example, there was one dude that was pre-T that got his first binder and he was trying it on, and she was like, so apparently like he wants to be, or well, the writer, she would misgender them, so but I'm not going to do that. But so everything I'm saying, if I'm saying he in the book, she said she. But so basically this one dude was like trying on his first binder, and he's pre-T, so he like shrieked or screamed or whatever because he was so happy to like see his chest all flat. And she was like, so apparently you don't like, you don't want your tits, but you're okay with shrieking, and you still want to be a man. And it's like,
oh yeah, that's enough of that.
Yeah, you can't help how your voice sounds. But yeah, so basically, that's who Joe Rogan chose to interview instead of somebody that's trans. So I feel like I'm gonna tweet him every day and ask him why he won't interview a real trans person until I'll eventually like something's gonna happen, because one of the tweets will end up getting retweeted or some shit. You know what I mean? But I'm just gonna keep tweeting and bugging him, because the fact that you would even give someone a chance to voice their opinion if he had actually read that book. I mean, maybe he's a piece of shit, but like,
it's definitely a piece of shit. I mean, that's what you're gonna find at the end of doing all the tweets. Even like, there's a reason. Like, these people aren't fucking dumb or like just ignoring you. Like, there's a reason why, and it's usually because deep down, like I've said before, they just don't. They're not with it. They don't get it.
Exactly, and it's funny because in this book, there's multiple times where she's like, I'm not talking shit about any of the adult trans people. It's only the children that are like getting seduced into this and stuff, which I don't understand what that even means, because there's seduce is like a sexual word and nothing about a trans identity is sexual. But she goes on to say, like, I'm not going to talk shit about any adults. And then she goes on and like talk shit and misgenders all these adults. And it's like very specific, to the point where a couple of the YouTubers I watch put out videos saying like, don't Google this book, don't give it like any more attention, but also like don't read it. And a couple dudes read it and then like warned everybody else that's in the book so that nobody else needs to read it and like hear this toxic shit that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me that's the scariest part. Not the scariest. I'm not really scared. That's what's weird is people are like, oh, I'm scared. I mean, I get being scared, but like I think I'm just so like determined to like, I'm just so over the bullshit that I don't think scared is the right emotion. But what the thing that concerns me the most about these things is that this platform that the people like Joe Rogan and that artists have, or artist, author, whoever the fuck it is so huge, and like they're so influential, and it feels like we're battling, you know, like this huge thing that we can't really make a dent in. It's really frustrating. It's actually parallel to like the music shit, our battle with that. It's like, how do we break through this noise to get to a point where like we can actually explain what's going on, and that we're not part of some movement of like corruption, and that trans stuff has nothing to do with sexual, like seducing, or like in this negative sexual context. Like, I don't know what to do other than doing like these podcasts, but like, what kind of traction does this get versus like Joe Rogan's audience? Like,
exactly.
And their minds are all already so made up. Like, and that's what's wild. Like, I don't know how to deal with that. I'm trying to navigate how to deal with that. Because a lot of our energy, and a lot of energy of podcasts that I've heard from trans people, I feel like it's not wasted, but like we waste a lot of energy, like having, like just talking about this rhetoric that doesn't get us anywhere to like make a dent or like change things. I guess other than what we do. I mean, I guess it does make a difference, but I mean, it just seems so overwhelming when we're inundated with those stories of like the Joe Rogans and all that. And they're always the same fucking beliefs. You keep talking about things that are like, yeah, that's these old tropes, these tired like stereotypes of trans people that are just so, when you look at them, don't have a basis in reality or fact at all.
Yeah, they have no idea. And then the whole thing about being worried about like predators and stuff. It's like, okay, so you're worried about like a trans woman like attacking you in the bathroom, but you still go to like a Catholic church. Like,
yeah,
where does that make any sense? You know what I mean? From like facts.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just it's so messed up. But I just can't even imagine.
But it's cool for priests to be in the bathroom with little boys.
Yeah, exactly. Or like pray alone and stuff like that. But that's okay, because it's like, oh, that won't happen to my kid. But like, I can't even imagine the hands that this book is getting into, and what damage it's doing to the youth, and how many suicides are going to happen because a parent reads this book and then they treat their kid like they're fucked up because they thought they were like safe to come out at home, and then the parents get a hold of this like irreversible book. Mm-hmm. And like, I just can't even imagine like the actual damage it's going to do, like not hurting people's feelings, but like suicides and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. But what if you can help me, because I'm not exactly sure, because I know from my, from MTF perspective,
yeah,
like, you have puberty blockers. Let's say let's look at kids kids that transition, because there's a lot of myth and bullshit out there about that as well. And I've told like I went on the podcast with straight cis dudes. I was like, there's no irreversible anything happening to kids when they're transitioning. If anything, there's puberty blockers, and these are prescribed. And after numerous appointments with a doctor and therapist and families, and it's completely reversible. Puberty blockers just delay puberty from kicking in with no other. I mean, there's always going to be side effects to things, but with no other long-term detriment if the child decides to not want to do that. And in many cases, we don't have a lot of research on it because most of the time they don't decide to go back off of puberty blockers. You know what I mean? Like that, it's rare that happens. So what is it like for FTM? Is it the same thing, like a blocker?
Yeah, same. I'm assuming it's a different blocker, but yeah, it's the same like shot every 3 months. And yeah, people are going on like, why are you mutilating your kids and stuff? And it's like it's literally a shot you take every 3 months, at least for F to M. I don't know how often
it's similar, I'm sure.
But yeah, it's 100% reversible. It just, all I know is like if you were born with male parts, it makes your balls not drop. But if you stop taking it, then they would drop. Or you can go on to estrogen and then they don't drop. And same kind of, it can help if you take it at the right time, then you won't have breast tissue growth and everything like that. So it can do a lot. Like if I would have known about them as a child, I would have like begged to be like, I didn't know that was a thing. Because if I could
me neither
go back and not have hips right now, like oh my God, like that's amazing. But yeah, the fact that people are seeing that as like a hormone and stuff, it's so false. And people going on about how kids are having surgery, and it's like,
they don't.
What are you talking about? Like,
you know what kids have surgeries? Kids that come out intersex and then against their will are operated on because the parents fucking make dumb decisions and decide to mutilate their bodies then. And then those kids end up fucked up. That's the surgery that goes on that but that's okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good documentaries on that. If anyone listening is interested, if you like search intersex on even Hulu, there's a ton of good stuff about how to educate yourself about that. And they get a good like spectrum of people that had a bunch of surgeries as a child and some that had none. And
it's brilliant to see it because intersex experience and all that is so brilliant in terms of like, wow, what a bridge, what a visual, an actual representation of what we're saying as trans people, because it's different. Intersex is different than trans.
Yeah,
but it's similar because you're seeing how physical manifestations of bodies can be different than the brain. Like you can have a dude, someone that looks just like you think is a dude, sounds like a dude, acts like a dude, and that brain is like, I'm a woman completely.
Exactly.
And it's just like these intersex people are brilliant to be able to. We don't need an example, but if you need an example, go study that shit and see how many people have been affected by having surgeries against their will, really against their will. Not that they were trans, or people that had decisions made for them when they were kids that grow up and then are like, holy shit, I've been fucked up because like my parents decided to like create this genitalia for me or whatever it was. And now they're like really fucked up.
Yeah, create or take away. And a lot of it from what I watched too, the doctors even manipulate the parents and they don't even really tell them what's going on. They just are like, oh, something weird is going on. And they're like, we'll fix it. And it's like, why is that okay? And no one's looking at that when that's an actual thing that's happening. And most people, like I know a couple people that have gotten top surgery, like female to male top surgery when they're like 16 or 17, but that's because they have been like, since they were like 5 years old, they're like, no, I'm a boy. They're miserable. And it's something to like help their mental health. And it's not something that they just like jumped into. They had, when you're a minor, you have to have therapy for years and there's so many hoops to jump through. So it's just like, it's a completely different thing than intersex.
100% different. But it's, you know, you can see like, again, it's just another subdivision of people. We're trying to explain that there's like a real basis here. And we've just basically debunked just right now. And all you have to do is go on the, like, I'm not going to say go on the internet because people, who knows what's on the internet. But all you have to do is go search and study this, and you can see, at the very least, if you are skeptical of like trans people's validity and experience, that is just completely unwarranted. Like there is definitely a reality to this existence, and that's what we're trying to say. And we're getting caught up in this muck of identity and social politics in our world right now, especially in this country, that is just making it seem as though it's lumping us into like this this nonsense that's going on, and how we're just. But what's so weird about that is, like, again, I'm not going to say one side or the other, but it's like there's one side that has just legitimate like facts, and like at the worst, if you go ahead and subscribe to like being like accepting of people, like there's nothing bad that comes of that. As opposed to like if you're on the other end and you're like going to subscribe to being non-inclusive and be an asshole and a bigot and racist to people. I think there's a lot more worse there. And that's with religion included. Religion is something that people don't like to touch even. It's still kind of held in a certain light, and that is just as toxic as anything. In this country, I respect a lot of religions, and most of them, but the way that America has twisted certain religion, the one that's dominated by like, or backed by like our government and all that shit, that's disgusting. That's not religion. That's disgusting.
Yeah. And church and state are supposed to be separated, but and they don't pay taxes, so it's a giant mess of, if churches paid taxes, no one would be hungry.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I guess we're radicals, because I prefer to live in a world where we can help people that are less privileged than other people are, and like I'm down to like make exceptions in my life to help somebody else out. Like it's not all about me, and those kind of people like us are just like radical because they're like not all about us and the bottom line, and like fucking you figure out how to survive. I think that's lame as fuck. I think we should be helping out each other as much as we can.
Really, I think everybody would benefit from that, besides maybe like the top 1%, but even if they just paid more taxes, they would too. But yeah, just with everything just going so backwards in this country, and how like the transgender, like homeless stuff, like with the rules at homeless shelters and everything, it just like, how is everything going so backwards?
Yeah, and think about the energy and the time that they're spending on enforcing those kind of rules for like these marginalized fucking group. Like I'm telling you, it's not. They make it sound like these trans people are like we're this huge army of people. Like we're very small. Like you're talking about disenfranchising or not housing like maybe 150 trans people because you're a fucking asshole for no reason. That these, like it's just wild to me.
Yeah, or putting them in danger in the wrong side of the homeless shelter or whatever. But yeah, the way they talk about online is like we have this whole hidden agenda, almost like we're like Antifa or something, like a different.
Well, yeah. Well, everybody's Antifa according to Trump, right? Anybody that believes like us, any artists, right? I mean, come on. But like if we're thinking about that's what's wild is like, okay, let's say we have an agenda. Let's say the trans people have an agenda to play their game. What would be the agenda? What's the end game?
My only agenda is fighting for equal rights, but that's for like everybody, like Black, Mexican.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, what do they think? Like, what do they like? They think like we're all on a mission to get off on making people transgender. And if we were, what would be so bad about that?
Yeah, I don't know what would be so bad, but also it's like, yo, just as much as you're cis, like we know we're trans. You can't be like most people. I mean, some people have detransitioned and like regret
it happens.
But like that happens. But it's like the masses aren't going to be manipulated or thought that they're all of a sudden magically transgender because like there's a transgender character on TV.
Yeah, like, and we don't know the instances of why people detransition. I'm sure sometimes people thought that was the way to go. Maybe somebody was in a low point with mental health and thought that this was the way to go. Then they realized it didn't. It still shouldn't be something that, it's still not a bad deal. Like whatever.
Yeah, no, I've watched a ton of detransition videos on YouTube because I'm so fascinated with everybody's side of it. It's not like I want to be like, hey, here's my side. It's like, no, I want equal rights for like everybody. I want detransitioners to feel safe in whatever community they like choose to be in afterwards. But a lot of them, it was kind of like a depression or something like when they're younger, something like they just didn't like their life and they thought that this would change it. And it's just a lot of different like mental health things where maybe they didn't have the right therapist or something, but it's like
or they're conflicted.
Yeah,
we still are. I mean, as trans people, this climate, even when you decide to come out and you transition, like you're still always dealing with conflict about what you should. I mean, there's people under tremendous pressure. Like a lot of people that do transition from what I've seen, and I haven't seen like a ton. I'm not sitting here saying that I've gone in and like studied a bunch of it, but there's always these circumstances that are like, okay, I can see how this was not going to work out for that person.
Yeah, no, for sure. And some of it's depression or whatever. Some people still want to transition, but they detransition for time being because they're not safe, and then they want to like retransition later. Like there's so many different reasons for it.
Pressure from family. Some people are under even more pressure than we are from family, or at the threat of like losing a child that they, because they've transitioned. Maybe they don't think it's worth it. Maybe they detransition for that instead.
Yeah, no, there's so many different reasons, and I feel like they should all be respected, and it's just like another thing. But for like normal cisgender people to think that that's how everybody is, or like their kids are gonna be into like turning trans just because, like, it just like that's not fact. It's not.
Yeah.
It's an expensive, terrible, like, I mean, I'm glad I'm gonna continue to transition, and I have like zero regrets, but it's not easy, and it's not something that I think most people would choose just to be like, oh, fuck it, like, let's do this. It's expensive and like draining.
Yeah, and at some point, if that's true, like if your kid's following a trend or whatever, hey, that's not going to be bad. Actually, it might be healthy. Like for a kid, if they're going to follow a trend, like at least they're going to be like more inclusive and like get this perspective that they wouldn't have otherwise had. I really just don't see a lot of like really negative shit that comes out of that. Like,
especially if they're a kid, they're not taking hormones or anything. If they want to dress different and like experiment, that should be welcome anywhere. Anyone should be able to experiment with how they dress and like how they identify. Because I know trans people experiment with that before they come out. Like,
it's a journey, right? It's a constant experiment up to a point. I think I'm old now, and I think I'm past experimenting. I think I know what's going on. Yeah, probably not. But I mean, what's interesting, we're having that conversation. The other thing that I've been really tired about, or I think I might have mentioned this the last podcast. I saw another video again today on YouTube, and this isn't necessarily just about trans stuff, which is great because I really like getting out of just trans talk all the time.
Yeah.
And it is kind of, it is related. It's in the same well, but I'm so tired. I'm getting more and more tired of like, and it never used to bother me as much, but like the cis heteronormative standard in our world I'm so tired of it. Like they're like, for example, I just saw a YouTube video from like an influencer fashion girl that does fashion videos and makeup shit. And she was like, oh, like, top 7 products. And then it's like, this one's for the ladies. And then you click it and, the products and all that are like based on like attracting dudes, like as if like only women like guys. And I'm just like, I hate that shit. It's driving me more and more nuts. Or like when there's like an ad for like a razor, like Manscaped is like this huge thing now. And people are like, oh, you got to shave your balls for the ladies, guys. Like, I'm like, what world is this in 2020 that we're still like holding on to these traditional bullshit things?
It's the world. It's terrifying. That's the same with, I mean, luckily on my TikTok, I don't see it, but like on YouTube, I'll see straight TikTok videos where they like make fun of stuff. And like, there's so many videos of girls just being like, ladies, if you want this guy, and then they show like a picture of some like ripped dude. They're like, you have to do these things and eat this. Otherwise, like your vagina is going to taste weird. And it's like, what the fuck? What is wrong with you? Like, that is not, one, that's not even true. Two, like everyone like has a different taste and smell regardless what you eat. Like, how fucking toxic is that to be like, you have to eat this, and otherwise like this guy's not gonna like you? It's like, how fucking toxic can you get?
Yeah, totally. And like, just like speaking to that real narrow, like, what if some guy wants to shave his balls with Manscaped because he wants to like be attracted or wants to have it all clean down there for another guy to suck his dick?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Why can't we talk about that?
I know. No, I know. It's a weird place because it's like almost every day I'm like, oh, we're getting somewhere, and then something like gets pushed back, and it's like, where are we even? And then when I travel, it's like, oh, it's like, except for at the venues on tour, it's like mostly just straight white cis people like everywhere. Like,
and that's what's wild is that still the dominant, obviously, because we're hearing it all the time. Like that's still the dominant thing. And they're saying that we're the ones that are pushing shit on people.
yeah, and it's like, no, we literally want equality. Or that's like another thing. This isn't trans related either, but I had a friend post today. They said that one of their friends on Facebook posted, they said, I'm really worried about how the radio is going and the songs on the radio. It's going to make women like more or like at a higher power than men, or like he was like worried losing his like manness or what, like equality shit. Like he was worried about men losing rights from like the radio. And it's just like,
wow,
where are you? Like, why can't everybody? And it shows that post, like that shows that he knows he has more rights than women. And he's
totally.
And it's like, dude, you realize you just admitted that by posting that, but it's like women deserve equal rights. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Like just because they're on the radio and being empowered, you didn't lose anything from that. It's so just, I don't understand how people think that way, or how that's a fear.
Yep. You know, it's all this being colonized shit. I hate to blame all you white people, but god damn it.
No, I know.
Fingerprints are everywhere at the colonialization and religion, and because even in the marginalized communities, it's I have no reprieve because I got to deal with it from the Mexican side, the black side, and then at the same time I'm fighting for marginalized groups, and I support all that, but people have to recognize that I have to do that with an extreme caveat of, but I don't think these people would fight for me, in my minorities specifically. So yeah, we just need to get past it and fucking stop all the bullshit but I don't know though, because I don't know who's going to win this war, because it's definitely a war for sure. Yeah, and we're a minority. I mean, us all included, all trans people and all that, LGBTQ.
I think this is just the beginning too. I don't even think it's necessarily a war yet, and a lot of that's going to depend on who wins the election. And that, I feel like it's going to either go way south or like either like way south, like to the core of the earth, or it's going to go like an inch up, depending on who wins.
Yeah, it's still going to be a fight, right? Especially with the new Supreme Court deal. It's just it won't, in our country, it won't be good. Like it's really, we've been really thinking about like, okay, what are some contingency plans of where else we can go? I know we can go to France, but we've really had like honest, real conversations, me and Jamie, about if we have to leave, we will leave.
That's wild. Me and Kaylin too. We're like, we'll go to Germany. If we would already be looking, but we're not even allowed to go there right now. So.
Yeah, same exact thing. Because I was thinking about even, I've actually been in talks with people in Lyon to bring our food spot out there, because I thought that'd be fucking awesome.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and they don't have they don't have any Mexican. They have like some weird. I've tried to make Mexican food out there. It's fucking impossible. They don't have the right product. I don't know how I would do it. I'd figure it out, but like I'd probably have to grow my own shit.
Yeah, you'd have to grow shit and like import stuff probably.
Yeah, we should all leave the country together so that y'all can grow all the hot chilies and peppers and shit.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we've seriously talked about it, because like depending on who wins, like I don't want to be associated.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a losing. I mean, let's be real. The country, and this isn't again. I don't want to talk about politics and all that shit. Really, I mean a little bit we have and will, but like beyond that, like the country, America, is built on white dudes, white people that, and I think that, I mean, we're just seeing like what this country really is. Like it's built on that. At the end of the day, they were the ones that came over and fucked everybody over and took over. Yeah. And that's what we're really still fighting for. Like at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want their white shit and their ideals like to be what they are. And they're going to fight at any cost to like make that happen. I find it fascinating because there's a ton of minorities now, and I think we're pretty much almost the majority if you add all the minorities in the country, but we're so indoctrinated and so fucking under the thumb and the thaw of everything that I don't know why we're not fighting against it. Maybe because we're just, I don't know, happy with our 20 grand a year, whatever it is. It's just like, and then I don't know, but anyway, it's like this country is really fundamentally not for people like me. Like we are still seen as immigrants and all that, and they're like, all this bullshit of like, oh, immigrants made this country. Like that's out the window.
Yeah.
Immigrants made the country, but like white people still feel like it's theirs.
Yeah, and I don't know about your opinion on this, but I remember kind of learning in school, and I think that a big problem of how you're saying like it is there's like if you take all the minority groups together, it's like a big group still. But in school I remember learning about every group so separate, and they kind of try and keep everybody separate instead of like making a big family thing. Like I remember like teachers and stuff like splitting up the Asians from the Mexicans from black people and stuff like that, and like making it almost like you can't be one big group.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, I just remember being taught that things were supposed to be so completely separated, I guess.
Yeah, we kind of all were, right? I mean, I feel like that's where'd you grew up in Phoenix? No, you were in Minnesota for a while, right?
Yeah, I went to a Christian private school in in Minnesota.
Even better.
Right, and then when I was 10, I moved to Phoenix and did public school.
That's funny how with that Minnesota AZ connection is there, which is really weird. But I was gonna say, yeah, once you get to Phoenix, it's funny because it wasn't like you're not aware of what they're pushing in schools, but again, a large part of this problem is the education and like what we're taught in school or what we had been taught. I feel like there's a lot of shit going on now where they're trying to change that, and Trump is trying to change that shit real quick with this new he's just going further and further with like trying to restrict like equality. What is the fucking word I'm looking for? Where where he's trying to basically take out what is it? Equality training or what the hell? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know the specific word for it, but I mean he's trying to erase history.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and just keep it. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like basically it's just to serve the story of this country, and we can't like forget that that's what this country is. Like, no matter how many strides we've made, at the end of the day, the country is still that. Like at its core. And I don't know if a country at its core like that's unwilling to make changes, which is very far. I mean, we're about as far away as you can get from finding a middle ground. I just don't know how that's going to be a place where I could like thrive.
Yeah, knowing what I grew up with and learned in school, it was already a bunch of like fucked up lies, and they try and make it be like, oh, we were so nice to indigenous people and blah blah blah, and all this like bullshit that they teach you that's like totally not true. So I can't even imagine them changing that even more. It was already not okay what they taught.
It seems like they want to teach. It seems like they just want to like ignore it, basically, like ignore all the immigrants and minorities and just teach their bullshit and just have us. I guess the minorities are just supposed to deal with it because it's not our country. Yeah,
that's so weird to me because I remember maybe one day learning about slavery, and it was basically like, oh, and then slavery ended. Like we never learned what slavery was or anything like that, and like about like indigenous people, there was like maybe another one day on that, and the rest was just like this guy did this thing and this other white guy did this awesome thing, and it's like, so they're going to take out like 2 pages that were already like brushing the surface of what really happened. Like it's crazy.
Well, that's fun. I mean, I love it. The other, just to move on, because we can go on and on. That's good though, because every episode has to have these kind of meandering existential crises, which that is. I mean, it's like, what the fuck am I going to do with that information?
Seriously.
Here's the interesting thing. So while all these things are going on, and there's a lot of negative shit going on, there's also like weird things that happen where we win in some instances. Like the new law, the California will house transgender inmates by gender identity just passed. That's interesting. Like, that's got to piss off a bunch of people, right? Like that they're going to house inmates that with the right population in California. I thought that was a thing pretty much everywhere. I guess California just actually signed it into law, though.
Yeah, no, I was reading about that too. I wasn't sure because I know some places had like a separate I know some prisons had like a tiny, like separate little wing that had gender people and stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. I wonder how that's going to play out.
Mm-hmm. That's what yeah. What the fuck?
It's so weird. Like, it's so weird how some states are going backwards, some are kind of going forward, and then they get pushed back by fires or something. It's just like, what is going on? This place is too big.
Yeah, it's too big because you got that. So that's like good. It's kind of odd because it's like, it's inmates and they're gonna. It's weird because it's like, yeah, you do that, but then you're just giving people room to be like, these are criminals. Like, why do they get rights and all? It's like they can't see past that shit. And
yeah, it's like they're humans too. Like if anybody feels that way about like people just being criminals, there's tons of YouTube channels that you can watch of people that are ex-cons or like ex-drug addicts and stuff, and the way they talk about prison and everything, it really like humanizes it, and you can realize that like they are just people in there. I mean, besides like the murders and the rapists, like for the most part, like drug crimes and stuff, like you shouldn't be treated that poorly for selling some marijuana.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
So like obviously it should be, depending on what you did, it should matter, but like to think the whole population is a piece of shit is like so wrong.
Agreed. I agree with that. And it's interesting because I looked into it a little bit, and I don't know how they decide, is somebody trans enough, quote unquote, to go to a certain prison? Like, what if you're not on? It's going to be hard to be. I don't know. Like, that's a whole nother thing. Like trying to stay on hormones when you're in the system. I know some people can, and some people haven't been able to. Certainly, there's people, trans women, that haven't had surgeries or whatever. Like, how do they navigate that? Because that should be a blanket thing per identity for every trans person, and even, let's say, intersex people. Like that needs to be a blanket thing that is upheld regardless of like the nuances in your physical manifestation.
I would really hope so, but I'm sure, assuming our government in every other way, I'm sure they're gonna do some bullshit where they're like, if you haven't had this surgery or you don't have these hormones, like they probably aren't gonna respect it at first.
Probably not. Yeah, we got to move past that too.
Yeah, I'm sure one day I would hope that would be, but yeah, I'm sure they're gonna do some case to case basis thing. It's gonna be bullshit, and like, I mean, I hope it works out, but I don't see that happening right away.
Well, I just hope that people can move past. I really hope that one day it's going to be, we're far away from it. People can move past body parts per like gender. Cause like the more, like, again, as speaking from experience as a trans person, the more you have experience with it and you're like you're in you're out as not out as a trans person, but you have that understanding, and probably maybe I had a predisposition because I was trans, but like the physical manifestation of sex organs to me don't have genders. And I know that sounds radical to people. Like, I know that sounds crazy when you're like, to people, not to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, I know to lay people or cis people, when you're like, oh, some women can have a penis. I get how that sounds odd, right? Like, you can understand, but like, really, once you really understand that, you totally know that. And I don't know if it takes like seeing people that are like, that you could swear to cis people, oh, it's a woman, and then she has a penis or something, like, to drive it home or what it is. But like, it really is just a fucking organ, and just like boobs are, like, it's just, they really are just body parts.
No, exactly. That's the same fight when people are like, oh, you need a uterus to be a woman. And it's like, there's so many cisgender women that had to have their uterus removed or weren't born with one.
Yeah.
Like, how you can't, like, any fight like that, it's just so close-minded, and I mean, in their head, it probably ends the correct way. Like, they're like, oh, I'm right. But like, that's just not fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a post the other day, and one of my cisgender friends was like, I don't have a uterus. Does that mean I'm not a woman? And then they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, apologizing to them. And I was like, no, you need to apologize to the trans girl you were like being a dick to. Not.
Oh yeah. Good point.
Yeah. It's like now you're sorry because some cis girl saying they don't have a uterus, but you were just attacking a trans girl for not having one. Like, no, move on.
Well, they're probably just going to be like, yeah, because I guess you run out of arguments. That's what I'm saying, like from their perspective. So if they're like, okay, yeah, you're right, I should not do that, but like this girl was born like a girl and was like a girl, and you're like, yeah, so was the trans person. Like they just run out of arguments.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like at some point, and if they actually listen and didn't talk over, like the cis people that I've had conversations with, cis dudes specifically, that you could say whatever you want, and then they just come up with what they say, and then it's like, that always ends up being like the final word, like no matter what.
Oh, totally. That happened to me the other day. I wasn't even in an argument or anything. Someone had this long comment on one of my friends they had like a pro trans something like trans acceptance post, and then someone went on a whole thing about kids being mutilated and blah blah blah.
Oh my god,
saying something.
Does not happen.
Yeah, right. And then they said transgendered people, and all I was like was like, hey, yeah, I was like, hey, just so you know, it's transgendered. Transgendered is not a word. That's all I said, because I was like, I don't want to fight today, but I was like, yeah, at least say the right thing if you're gonna look like an idiot, like at least have the right grammar. And then he replied and it was just like, whatever, you weren't born with a penis. And I was like,
okay,
what does that have to do with any? I was like literally just correcting your grammar.
What a weird thing again.
Yeah.
And it always comes down to a fucking body part.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what. Yeah, no shit, I wasn't born with a penis, I'm trans.
Yeah, and it's like you don't even know that. What if I was intersex or something? Like you have no idea. Like
Very true.
How can you even say that? And
yeah.
Like, technically, if you want to get into science and stuff, like trigger warning for dysphoria, I'm gonna use a female word. A clitoris is technically a penis.
Yes.
Like mine from testosterone has grown. And it looks like a micro penis now.
That's awesome.
It's growing. It's really cool. But yeah, it's like, so that depends what you're saying, because then are you saying that cis men with micro penises don't have penises? Because mine's probably as big, if not bigger, than someone born with a micro penis.
And this is what's so fucking fascinating. And I always try to tell people about trans experience. And I think this can actually help a lot of trans people if we can have these candid conversations. But like, our bodies as human beings are identical. The only difference between us is hormones and like the manifestations of hormones and chemicals have in our bodies to make body parts pop out or not, or appear or rearrange the way that they're manifested.
Yeah.
So like we're all the same. And like what we're doing as trans people is like, if we feel the need, we're just rearranging what we already have. Or if you need assistance to get things that are physically in the way out or physically not there in, then it's like you're just manipulating that. Is anybody like, we're the same. We put too much value on the fact that these are very different and separate things, but we're all the same. Like whatever, like we're all the same. Like we're all arguing about like the way our body parts are manifested is really ridiculous.
Yeah, and that goes into another thing that Joe Rogan said. What a fucking idiot. Like he didn't do any research. He was saying that it's so radical to all of a sudden put a hormone into your body that you haven't ever had before. And it's like,
that's
no, everybody has both. It just depends how much of each you have. And he was going on like, I can't believe people put like a substance in their body, like a hormone they've never had before. And like, what are the long-term effects of that and stuff? And it's like, no, like that's not fact.
Not at all.
Like I already had testosterone in my body, just not enough.
Yep. That's totally true. And that not enough for how you like you're currently, feeling. Like everybody's different, right? Like some people are cool with the amount that they have and some aren't. Like, and I really do think that there does need to be more work and research done, also with trans people in terms of like mental health, but more of like trying, and this is for me, but like trying to find a place where there is like some sort of acceptance of how your body physically manifested it and how that has no bearing on how you identify.
Exactly.
Like I think that's like really what we need to work on, because we could help reduce suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, things like that. If we can help children, people, like come to a healthy place where they're like, although I can't make my body fit what I think it should be, I might be able to get to a place where my body will become the gender that I think it is, regardless of me fucking with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, and everybody obviously needs different things and has different types of dysphoria, but it's totally something that should be talked about a lot more.
I think so, yeah, because I think a lot of it can be, you know, aside from, because there is an innate discomfort, right? Like there's something there that isn't learned. It wasn't like, it's not something that that is from society's pressures or wanting to dress a certain way because I feel more comfortable that way. There's something that is innately there, I think, with trans people that's not talked about often or validated enough, that there's an innate feeling, not something that's like, oh, I identify with the subsector of people. Like I identify with women because they dress cute or something. Like there's something deeper there that makes me go there and that feels right there. But there's a lot more static that comes from like society and like the pressure of like your body is not right based on like what society values. I think if we can chop that down and get that out of the way and turn down the volume on what we need to have or what we're lacking, I think that could help a lot in the long run, at least by time. And then less like, because even when you have surgery, as you've known, you just had surgery, like that shit doesn't necessarily go away. And I think that's also because there's a lot of like, you know, the ingrained shit that we've dealt with over the years, like not even chopping shit off or putting shit on, like it's gonna fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love my chest and like I have zero regrets. I never even had a thought of like, what if I regret this? Like I just knew I needed it, but like I still have giant hips and stuff like that. And that part of that is my own problem just because I still don't connect completely, but also in a couple of years, testosterone should like move the fat around so my hips won't look as big. Yeah. But there are things that I probably think about because of society and not because I actually feel that way.
But it's hard to like to like self-evaluate that. Like that's what I do all the time. It's like I try to catch myself and be like, okay, it's only because society says that, but like there's obviously women out there with bigger fucking hands than you. Yeah, and your hands are gorgeous.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah. They really are.
See, and I'm like, and to you, it's like I don't even notice like hips.
Well, that's good. Because you haven't seen me shirtless. That's probably why.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing though. Is like I haven't seen you. There was that time you were drunk, but I don't think I saw the whole shirt off.
Probably not. The time I was drunk.
But yeah, I think that, you know what, that's a great point to stop. 50 minutes. Fuck me. But I think we had a great conversation today. Actually, really good. I think we're just getting better every week.
Yeah, I think it's getting really good.
And that's why I try to keep a loose. I do this with the Moon House podcast too. It's like I have some ideas. I don't always share them because I like to just have a conversation and like just let it roll, because I think that we already know what to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
Did you have any questions? Is there questions? I know you had like maybe specific to like what you had going on. I guess we can cover those maybe next week. And I guess this week again, I didn't get a reply from anybody for guest, but I think we can get a guest this week.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. If you can't find someone, maybe I can. But
okay.
Yeah, I didn't get any questions yet that are specific for this, but I want to post that link and see if I can get any.
Okay.
I basically got like, what makes you sad? Do you like anybody? And stuff. And I was like, no, trans stuff. Like, yeah, I was like, what? Who's asking if I like anybody too? Like,
it's funny because people are always like, I don't have any questions for trans people, and then they are like just so uninformed about trans people. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, you. I'm like, I'm giving you a chance to anonymously ask like whatever you want, and then we can decide if it's appropriate. But it's like, at least try.
Yeah, I don't think we have a lot of lines, at least personally, of like what would be inappropriate. I think like the more inappropriate, the better. We can have a fun conversation.
Yeah, there's not much that would like, I don't think anything would piss me off.
Not more than the shit that we already deal with on a daily basis. That's not supposed to.
No, it'll be fine. And then it would be nice to answer it in a podcast and be like, hey, don't ever ask anybody this in public, but we'll answer it here for you. But don't Don't ask that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I thought like this is like a great forum for it, because we can discuss and have that, and then like throw those disclaimers on. And that's what I wanted, was like those kind of, this is the place to ask those questions.
We'll get it. Yeah, and then a couple other questions I had. It was like, that's not even. Someone was like, does your T dose have to change like after you have surgery and stuff?
Oh, yes, and please, if you have questions, send them in. Send them in, whatever it is you ask us. We won't be offended. If they're fucked up, we'll answer them anyway, and we'll school you on the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed like the higher pitch voice too. God, I cannot stand when that happens. See what I'm saying? It's like you're stuck with this voice that is just comes out of you versus having to change it like this and make it like super femme. Could do it. Don't want to do it. We'll see you next week here on the Transdemic.